Okay, so let's get started. Firstly, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining from all the different corners of the world. This is our annual town hall. We had the in-person version at CHI in April, so about 2 months ago. And this is the first of the two virtual town halls that we're organizing this week. We have representatives from the executive committee, many of them, and also from the CHI steering committee. And we wanted to go through some presentations just to give you an update of what we've been up to. But we also wanted to maximize the time that we have available for the Q&A. So we'll go through our slides really fast, and we're planning to share via email many more details on each of the areas that we'll cover, at least for the EC. And also the recording will be shared in a couple of weeks when it's ready with the captions. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. First, for those of you who just joined, there is a link to the Slido here. So you can post questions on the Slido. You can post questions here in the Zoom chat. And really, you can ask questions about anything at all, whether it's CHI related, because we have people here who can take those questions, or SIGCHI related. Thank you all for joining again. Morgan, can we go to the next slide? So this is our agenda for today, and this was also in the emails. We're going to talk about news and updates. Luigi, who's our VP Finance, will go over the budget for the next fiscal year. Then we have Caroline out there, who's going to talk about the post-conference survey for CHI 23. And we have the CHI 25 open calls. And then we'll leave the rest of the time for Q&A. Next slide, please. So news and updates, and I'm going to ask Andrew Kuhn, who's the Executive Vice President, to start with a quick 1-minute intro to what SIGCHI is.
Thank you, Neha. Hello, everyone. So on the next slide, we have as a reminder that this is a community of 26 conferences. There are over 4,000 members of SIGCHI at this point, and these 26 conferences have over 13,000 attendees each year. And if we look at the next slide, you'll see that this is the group of volunteers on the executive committee who oversee a whole host of activities related to those conferences and around those conferences. And in fact, on the next slide, you'll see that all of us have a variety of committees that we're actively working with, and many of you here are representing those communities. So those committees. So thank you for all of that work. And I think with that, I will hand it back to Neha.
Thank you. So what do we do in all of these committees? We're not going to go into everything. We literally only wanted to focus on the stuff that's super current. So on the next slide, Morgan, let's talk about one cluster of our activities, which includes conferences and publications. So everything related to knowledge generation. And that is, of course, first and foremost about our conferences. So we've been looking at how we should grow our conferences, and this is led by Susanna Voll, who's here. We've been thinking intentionally about how we should try to cover greater breadth and depth while also ensuring meaningful growth. And there will be a blog post coming to kind of talk about our strategy here. Second, we've introduced new guidelines for conference leadership and ensuring compliance with code of conduct, but also a host of other things to try to give some more support to our steering committees. And we'll be working closely with them to figure out what this support could look like. And we hold monthly meetings to have those conversations. Next, we are looking at hybrid formats. So right now, what that looks like is developing a checklist for conferences to use so that they could support hybrid, looking at a list of resources that conferences could look into, and also doing a survey of recent conferences. So basically all of our last 26 instances of conferences to see what they've been doing for hybrid. The publications committee, there's some representatives here who are looking at supporting our authors, so making policies more transparent, for example, the authorship policy. making pubs accessible. There's also going to be a summit for peer review, which will engage our different conference communities and think about how we're contributing intellectually across our conferences. And then we have mini courses that are basically tutorials for new people joining our community to see how they can generate papers, they can go through ethics checks and such. So there's going to be 4 to 5 such sessions that are going to be created for our community, starting with reviewing in August. And then we have our new interactions editors-in-chief, Elizabeth Churchill and Mikhail Weber. Next slide, please. Okay, so on the global front, which is our second cluster of activities, looking at how we're doing with our global presence, establishing richer connections across our chapters is one. So we have local and thematic chapters. We're trying to engage our chapters committee to facilitate richer information sharing on different fronts, and then supporting our chapters activities through funds, but also other means. And we have chapters committee members here as well. And then on the regional committees, we have our Asia committee, which is still going strong, 10 plus years in. We have the Latin America committee, which was formed about 2 years ago. We have our Mediterranean, so Southern European group of volunteers who are putting together the MedCai committee now. And then there's an Africa committee that is in the making. And we're also organizing an African Leadership Summit in a couple of months. Next slide, please. And just before, can we go back for a second? There's a link here to the chapter survey. I wanted to mention that. So that's a survey that our chapters committee is doing. So if you represent a chapter, if you could fill out that survey. Next. And then on the individual/community/planet front, we have a bunch of different activities around supporting. So supporting volunteers. Our membership has been changing. There are many more students that are members, and it's much more globally distributed. So how could we support those changes? We have open calls for volunteering pretty much all of the time. We have a volunteers handbook and an articulation slash agreement that we're trying to develop to see how we can support our volunteers in their activities and through the duration of their volunteer activity. On the community support front, we've funded travel awards in the last fiscal year for about $80,000, and that's supporting 245 awardees. For the development fund, we've been able to support $206 US dollars worth of projects, and that's 34 projects across our communities. And we're also developing event guidelines. If our events that are applying for development funding would like to be more accessible, more safe, more hybrid, these are some guidelines that they could use for those. So these are all going to be up soon. We have futuring committee members who are working on various projects. And this is basically our group of early career scholars and practitioners. We're working towards expanding HCI awareness, diversifying knowledge production formats, supporting new scholar communities across the SIGCHI family. We have the sustainability committee, which has been super active, and you would have seen the SIGCHI as well. Those of you who were there, we've started a mailing list recently, which is about 200 members strong, and there's been some great activity there. We're looking into supporting tree stamps or some form of recognizing impact on sustainability through our publications, also looking into site selection guidelines for conferences, and then a blog series to look at how sustainability could be a part of our HCI intellectual exercises. On the communications fronts, we're going to be doing SIGCHI months to focus on different focus areas, also to make the work more visible, but also to make our community more visible. So that's the Who is SIGCHI, to celebrate the different kinds of identities that we bring to the table. And we're also going to be starting the SIGCHI Quarterly, which is a bulletin, a quarterly bulletin towards our SIGCHI Turns 50 project, which is going to be in 9 years, but making sure that we're doing the documentation necessary for that. And then we have the Partnerships Committee, which is working on building greater partnerships with different practitioner communities and HCI adjacent disciplines. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Luigi to talk about our budget. Not yet, sorry. So if you wanted to learn more, you could read about membership benefits, you can read our Medium publication, you can participate on our various programs on sichchi.submittable.com and attend our monthly open meetings. And now we have the budget.
Hello, thank you. So a brief introduction to the SIGCHI budget. So every fiscal year that for the ACM start at the 1st of July every year, and then at the end of June the next year, the ACM makes in general X dollars, US dollar available to SIGCHI. That is the money that SIGCHI has and can spend, not entirely. And what this money is, we have two flows in general in this money. One is the money we bring in, and the other clearly is the money we take out. So where SIGCHI in general brings money in, SIGCHI brings money in for conferences, incomes, and revenues. So the 26th conference that Andrew mentioned before, the downloads from the digital library, and the membership dues. All these three things are the main areas in which we bring in money. And clearly, we also spend money, so take out money from this budget. And these spends are the conference expenses. So conference getting money, but also correctly, conferences spend the money to run the conference. The expenses of the executive committee, that includes the program, like the development fund, the Gary Maslin Travel Award, the tree stamp, etc. The programs that Nea mentioned at a few moments before, and the ACM overheads. That is a sort of a taxation. Let's say that the ACM apply to every dollar that SIGCHI spend. So these are money that we need to spend. And in the next slide, we can see the high-level representation of those numbers for the fiscal year 2024. So the next fiscal year that will start in 3 days from today, because the 1st of July. So at that date, the 1st of July, we're expected to have $4.3 million in, let's say, in our SIGCHI bank account. It's not the real bank account, but let's say that is sort of a bank account. The money we bring in for the next fiscal year are expected, always considering conference revenues, downloads from the digital library, membership dues, in around 7.7 million. And including this ACM overhead and the conference expenses that are, let's say, out of the EC control, because conferences can spend according to the budget they have approved. In addition to the expenses, so the money that we put forward for running our program, for meetings, for the conference, the CHI organization, etc., we planned to spend $8.5 million. So in this moment, we are planning, as we did actually last year, to spend more than we bring in. This is possible thanks to the rules that the ACM has. So the ACM is allowing us to spend a little bit more money if needed, to expand, to support the communities, to support our programs. And since we have clearly a few millions in the bank account at the beginning of the fiscal year. And just to clarify, as Matt was saying in the chat, currently EC expenses are money that we use to run the program to benefit clearly the community, not expenses that we have as individual EC members, clearly. So this is the bigger picture. There will be a blog post coming out, let's say soon, about more details in these figures. And if you have more curiosity on how these numbers are computed, you can always ask also today. But in the next slide, what I want to give you is an overview of how these EC expenses, so how the EC budget this money for expenses in the various area, again, at high level. So you can see that the majority of the money that you see budgeted for the next fiscal year are for conference support. That is around 30% of the expenses. That means conference support means the program app that those of you who were at CHI and in other conferences were probably using the PWA application, but also PCS and CEvent that conferences can use. Then we have general expenses. That means all the community travels, the contracts we sign, etc. That is around 18% of the expenses. Then we have all the community support, chapter support, conference support, sustainability, community-focused initiative that consists of a good amount of money. So for instance, the community support, that means the development fund and the Gary Masenthal Award for then this next year is 11% of the budget, so $260,000. For chapter support, that will go to the development fund as an application, but we have a separate fund for keeping track and to allocate money appropriately. We have $58,000, sustainability, $48,000, accessibility, that is basically the fund for accessibility, mainly for conference, but not only, and the PDF remediation, that is other $65,000. The CHI organization, so selecting the steering committee meetings, selecting the travel for selecting the next CHI or the future CHI location is currently budgeted at $50,000, etc. You can see that there is other items like cares or member benefits, money for supporting volunteerism operation, and award. Clearly, we need to put money for giving the awards, etc. So this slide is a high-level picture of what we spend and cover in these EC expenses, as we called in the slide. And with that, my overview on the next fiscal year budget is over. The general message is that SIGCHI is still doing well, and we are doing well. And thanks to this, we are still able to spend a little bit more than we get as incomes to spend this money for the community and conferences and chapter mostly. Thank you.
Thank you, Luigi. And now we have the post-CHI survey results. Thank you, Caroline.
So, hello. So I'm Carolina Per. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm part of the CHI steering committee, and in particular, I take care of all data-related matters. So as you may know, CHI traditionally runs a survey after the conference to collect feedback from the community. And today I present the main observations that we have collected after the CHI 23 conference. So first, a quick overview. We run this, next slide, sorry. We ran the survey for 2 weeks right after the conference. We can see 2 peaks in the volume of responses. The first one when we launched, and the second one 1 week after when we sent a reminder. So overall, we had 832 persons who took part to the survey, which represents around 17% of the CHI attendees. So we had close to 5,000 attendees. So that's roughly 17%. Next slide. So here we can see the distribution between respondents who attended the conference in person in green and those who attended virtually in blue. So we have around 10% of the respondents who attended the conference virtually. So it's a bit less than the actual percentage of virtual attendance, which was around 17% this year. So next slide. So to the general question, how valuable was your CHI experience? We can see a clear breakdown by attendance type. So on-site, so on the left, you have on-site attendance, and on the right, you have virtual attendance. So on the left, it's quite clear that on-site attendance was much appreciated. So because of the value of networking and the quality of science at the conference. But on the left, feedback from virtual attendees was much less positive. And we can see a large portion of red here. And based on the comments, it's quite clear that people were particularly unhappy because some reasons, an important reason was that remote presenters did not get any visibility on site, and also because remote attendees couldn't interact with other attendees and thus felt quite isolated. Next slide. So here is a complex slide. So it's just how people graded the different the keynotes and the different venues at the conference. So the general message is that we can see a lot of blue here, which is positive, and we don't see major differences between the venues. So overall, people appreciate all the venues. However, one thing that we can mention from the free comments is that at several occasions, respondents say that the organization of the poster venue could be better. So in particular, the layout of the hall was evaluated as a bit confusing, and the program has not leaving enough space for posters. So we can, next slide, please. And here is how people graded the events at the conference, such as the receptions, the job fair, or the town halls. And we can see something that we can notice at first is that there is some red regarding the job fair, with people reporting in the comments that there was not much happening there, so it was not clear what they could get from there. And the free comments also revealed that some attendees would have expected the town halls to spend more time discussing important points, such as the environmental costs related to the conference location. Next slide. Then we have how people graded the tools and types of content at the conference. I try to be fast so we have time for questions. So overall, people liked the sessions on site, but of course, the grades for streamed and recorded content was lower. So mostly because there was not enough of such content. And people were particularly unhappy about the choice of not playing the videos of remote presenters during the sessions on site. About the PWA, which is a web app for navigating the program, some people clearly expressed that they like it in their comments, while other people were quite unhappy about it, listing several usability concerns. I would say that it's not super surprising for a community like ours that typically have as high expectations. Next slide. So this is a complex slide again, but I try to summarize it. So we have an overview of answers to 4 similar questions about the durations of pre-recorded videos at the conference. So which was 7 to 10 minutes for papers and 3 minutes for posters. So first, what we can see is that there are large gray areas on these bars, and gray represents the answers did not watch or present. So this means that a large proportion of attendees don't watch those videos. And this is particularly true for posters. However, in the comments, people were positive also about those videos, mentioning that they facilitate asynchronous attendance. We had also some comments that mentioned the amount of work that producing videos represents for presenters. And in the free comments again, people complained that those videos were not played during the sessions for remote presenters. But otherwise, regarding the duration, which was the focus of this question, there is a large portion of green in the bars, which means that the duration of videos seems good. So some people would like to have them a bit longer, but overall, it seems to work well. Next slide. So in the next 3 slides, so I will present the feedback that we get about the selection process at CHI. So we had these questions this year where we were interested in the comparison between the previous system based on rebuttals and the current system based on revise and resubmit. So the first question was designed to capture how much of the respondents were aware of those systems. And we see that we had around 40% who were familiar with the 2 systems, so they were able to make comparisons. Next slide. And here we can see comparisons of the 2 systems along different criteria. So on the top line, so we consider the quality of papers, the quality of the dialogue between authors and reviewers, and the quality of reviews. So red bars are when rebuttals are considered better, and yellow bars are when R&R is considered better. Orange is no difference. So overall, we can see that authors perceive the quality of papers, reviews, and dialogue better with R&R than with rebuttals. On the bottom line, we have the other criteria, and we can see the drawbacks of R&R. So we have, the criteria as the workload for authors, for reviewers, and for program committee members. And here we see a trend that is clearly the opposite than that of the top line. The large red bars means that R&R, when compared to rebuttals, increases the workload for everyone who is an actor in the process. Next slide. So here we can see the answers to conclude to the general question, overall, what system do you prefer? And we have 20% in favor of rebuttals, 40% in favor of R&R, and 40% who do not express any preference. So R&R seems good overall. Next slide. So now we can see the answers to the questions related to accessibility. So on top, we can see that some of our attendees actually asked for some accessibility related features. On the bottom, we explicitly ask whether attendees went through negative experiences in terms of accessibility. In blue, it's when everything was okay. In orange, it's when there were some difficulties. And in red, it's when it was actually impossible to access some parts of the conference. So when we tried to interpret those results, so in the comments, actually the vast majority of troubles were about the difficulty or impossibility for virtual attendees to interact with the conference. We also had a number of comments about the on-site experience, which was mentioned as overstimulating for some attendees. Next slide. So we can see here what people appreciated at CHI. They appreciated sign language, captions, the fact that there was a quiet room in the conference center, and so you can get some rest, and there was some childcare for families. We also collected some suggestions about what could be improved, and in particular, people who want a better experience for virtual attendance, a larger range of food on site with clear indications about what is in the food. And they would also like more. They would also like to have more seats and areas to relax when attending on site. Next slide. So here are questions related to transportation. So on the top left, we can see that almost half of the attendees came by train, actually of the respondents, which is not the attendees. So, and during the conference, people were on foot or taking the train, and which was likely supported by the free passes to take public transportation that was offered to CHI attendees. And people were super happy about this initiative. Next slide. So in the survey, we had a series about questions that were specific to some venues. So I just report here one message that we got about the posters and the demos. Actually, some people had trouble on site to see some posters or demos in the hall. The hall was evaluated as too crowded, and the layout of booths and activities was considered as not always optimal. And the time reserved to posters and demos in the program was not sufficient. Next slide. I'm almost done. So here we can see answers to the final question we had in one of the final questions we had in the survey about the location of the CHI 24 conference. We asked how likely it is that people will attend CHI 24 that will be physically in Hawaii. And people are quite split here. So half of them answered that they would like to go or that they will very likely go. But the other half said that they won't go or will attend virtually. And in the free comments, people expressed concerns about the carbon footprint, the time and cost to travel there, and the fact that local communities in Hawaii do not encourage tourism. And this is next slide. So I will finish my presentation here with just an overview of the demographics element regarding the respondents to our survey. So we can see that we have, I leave it to you to interpret the distribution along the different demographic criteria that we consider. And that's it, if I don't want to take too much time. So Nea, I think I hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was amazing in the detail that you presented. And yes, as Matt said, lots of effort from you. Thank you so much. Next up, so while you take the time to also look at the questions in the chat, questions and some answers, and then also there's 2 questions for the chapters committee that I posted here. So while you do that, we'll also watch this video that Vanessa Evers has recorded, and Naomi is also here, who's the co-chair for CHI 25. And let's watch this now. It's a few minutes long.
Naomi and Vanessa. Hello, everybody. This is Vanessa from the Dapper Duo, Naomi and Vanessa. We are the general co-chairs for CHI 2025 and wanted to give you a little update on the conference 2025 and also to introduce our open call for volunteers. So CHI 2025 will be in Yokohama, and it'll be from Saturday, the 26th of April until Friday, the 1st of May. I know it's very hard to see here on this picture now that I'm hovering over it with my big head, in 2025. And the workshops will be from the Saturday, the 26th and Sunday, the 27th. As you can see, Yokohama is a beautiful city. It's not so very far from Tokyo, and the venue is absolutely wonderful where we will have our conference sessions, but also we really strive to have a good remote attendance, especially in light of sustainability, but more on that at a later date. This is an embarrassing slide, so I will go over it quickly, but basically this is Naomi and myself, your co-chairs, and we are very happy to serve you in organizing this conference, and we are really hoping that this conference can be groundbreaking in the sense that it hopefully can be most sustainable, most inclusive, most caring, and most fun, and of course super high quality. These are our technical program chairs, Sharon Ding of University of Glasgow and Koji Yatani from University of Tokyo. The technical program of CHI is always something really special. There's a lot of moving pieces, so this is really a big job. We are so thankful to both of them to take on this job, and they are just wonderful, wonderful people. Here you can see our paper chairs, Marcini Chetty, University of Chicago, Bongxing Li, Microsoft Research, and Phoebe Dugas from New Mexico State University. And these guys are really wonderful people, amazing people. Papers is a tough event to organize at CHI, and these guys are just so super qualified and so capable. We're just extremely in awe and honored that they are willing to help us out in the conference, and they will surely do an amazing job. So our many thanks go to them. And then here you have our open call for volunteers. This will open by July 31st. Please note that the associate chairs and the subcommittee chairs will be recruited through a different process. There will be a separate call at the beginning of 2024 in PCS, and that will be distributed through the SIGCHI member list and also social media channels. So please, if you would like to volunteer to CHI 2025, then this is the link you can use, the SurveyMonkey link, or the code you could scan to do so. We would love to have you join our little club, and we really hope to provide a wonderful experience to all volunteers that are interested to help out at CHI. I mean, of course, we all know volunteering is the backbone of CHI, and our utmost gratitude goes to all of you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Morgan. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of our presentations, and we have the rest of our time, so 20 minutes for Q&A. I see that we have been answering the questions that have been raised in the chat, but now if you'd like to ask a question out loud, you can just raise your hand, or you can put stuff in the Zoom chat, or you can put it in the Slido. Something new in Slido. And Luigi says that he needs to leave in 5-10 minutes. Okay. Well, we're doing the second of these virtual town halls tomorrow, and that's going to be later in the day. And this is for people west of the Atlantic mainly, but also it's a time that should work for Europe. If you'd like to join us tomorrow, you're welcome. If not, thank you for coming. We'll still be here for the next 8-10 minutes if you have anything else you want to bring up. The questions about I-25, we have Naomi here. Questions about CHI in general, we have Regan here. Questions about the survey, we have Caroline here. And then a few people from the EC, if you have any other questions about community support or travel awards.
If I may, Neha, because there was a comment, it wasn't quite a question, but there was a comment in the chat from Delisha. Apologies, I missed a bit of the presentation. I wanted to highlight again the great work the family chairs did for inclusivity. I hope this continues in conferences to come. I heard that it may not be in place for CHI 2024, and Caroline has said she fully agrees. It was absolutely great. I know she participated in the program. And then something about the survey link in email. Oh, for the CHI survey is closed. So if you're asking Swaraj, if you're asking about the CHI post-CHI survey link, it closed already. So it's only open for a short period of time after the conference. In terms of the family support, I would encourage anyone who's interested to go to the steering committee's website. It's chi.acm.org. You might actually have seen it accidentally when you've been trying to go to a CHI conference site and then found this weird steering committee page. But it does contain our policies. And one of the documents is called Core to CHI, and it explains at the current state of things what parts of CHI have oversight from the steering committee and what parts of CHI have are given to the general chairs to kind of use and have a little bit more autonomy over, so that they can make the conference kind of what they want it to be. So you can see which parts we kind of want to maintain every year through the CHI steering committee, and what parts there's a little bit more flexibility for general chairs to put their spin on things. And so family support actually comes under something that's important to CHI. So we encourage it. The steering committee is very supportive of it, but we don't constrain chairs by demanding it every year to year. And part of that is just simply a budgetary reason. As we move from one convention center to another, family supports can change quite dramatically. It is possible in many countries due to the types of local regulations in place to offer on-site family care. and it's quite impossible in others. And so I think that the goal of the steering committee and the general chairs and the family support chairs at every conference is to try and be as inclusive as possible. And to make sure that there are some family supports in place that comply with the local regulations and that are possible according to ACM guidelines. Okay, that was too long, sorry. I just wanted to make sure that was addressed.
Thanks, Regan. Delisha, did you want to respond to that? Any follow-up questions?
I think, thank you. I think it just makes it clear what we can look to expect and where to find that information. I think because it was so great this year, that it's almost like they set the bar so high, we want that and we expect it almost every year. So it's kind of, it's helpful to know where the CHI stands on that. But yeah, I just to reiterate, it was amazing and it really enabled a lot of participation from a lot of colleagues. The fact that it was, you know, child support was there and it was available on site, and it was just really good. And I commend the family chairs that put the work in for that. And yeah, I hope it does work for other conferences to come. I know it will impact whether people attend or not and participate. But thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Let me quickly check. Oh, there's one more question. So is hybrid going to be the ongoing model for CHI conferences to come? If so, are there any plans to improve the experience of virtual attendees? Regan?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. I think that some form of hybrid will always be present, but right now, I explained this core to CHI document, support for hybrid is not part of it because it was written before the pandemic or at the very beginning of the pandemic. So we should talk about where that's going to go. I think that there is general support for keeping hybrid as part of the CHI experience because of the improvements to accessibility for people who cannot travel or choose not to travel. I think, I'm not sure if everyone knows here, we should do one of these on CHI budgets, Neha. It'd be really great to kind of make sure that the community is more aware of where our money goes with CHI budgets. Organizing the hybrid components of CHI have cost as much as, or in 2022, as the physical parts. So hosting the conference platform was as expensive as the physical location. The logistics support to promote the program was as expensive as the logistics support for the in-person program. So it's like running two conferences financially. And that's not something that we can continue to do. So 23 took a different approach of having this very kind of lower cost asynchronous form of participation, which, as you can see from the survey, was not really well regarded by the virtual attendees who maybe had different expectations, because as Delisha notes, when things change from year to year, it's hard to know what to expect. So moving forward, I think 2024, you'd have to ask the general chairs or general chair about that. However, I will say that the conference being in a location that is quite inaccessible to many, and where people might be choosing not to travel due to climate and reasons of supporting local communities, there will be some form of hybrid support. I'm just not sure what that is yet, but I can look into that and get them to kind of maybe announce that a little earlier than expected so the community knows what to look for.
Thank you, Regan. I will take you up on the offer to do an open session on the budget. And Susanna, I'm wondering if you want to say anything about the hybrid discussions that we've been having.
Yeah, sure. So we have also the question of hybrid for all of our other conferences. CHI is for sure a very challenging one, as Regan just described, but we have been forming a hybrid working group on the question, how can SIGCHI do, or what kind of recommendations can we give to our SIGCHI sponsored and co-sponsored conferences with regard to hybrid. And the results from the community so recently was that there is a wish to support hybrid, but there's also a wish to get guidance on that, help maybe more financial support, maybe something that SIGCHI is offering in general, but also structural support in the sense of what do I do if I want to do like a medium, small size hybrid additional version of my conference. And we are currently working on exactly the two. So one is a very easy or simple version that we will create a curated list of existing reports. So what has SIGCHI conferences, but also what have other conferences in the field been doing, and what did we see as successful versions of hybrid? And second, we will be working on offering you basic guidance on, let's say, small and medium versions of running conferences hybrid, and also not only the technical infrastructure you will need for that, but also on like the structural decisions you need to make. How many people does that involve? You know, what is the time frame for organizing this? What tools have been successful? So we are on our way. Be a little bit more patient, but we are super happy to offer guidance, because we as a SIGCHI executive committee find it very important that we continue to offer hybrid experiences of whatever level, but at least be inclusive and accessible by still having a future hybrid component for each of our conferences. If you have any questions in general, reach out to me, reach out to Adriana. The hybrid working group is also on the list of our committees on the SIGCHI page. So we are very happy to hear your questions, your ideas.
Thank you, Susanna. And we'll be doing a report back on the discussions with the hybrid working group soon. I just want to repeat for those of you who joined a little bit late that we had a bunch more slides that the different subcommittees of the EC had put together. And we'll be sharing the slide deck with everyone. And we'll also have a summary of this town hall available. There'll be a recording as well. If you want to join tomorrow, if you weren't able to attend the full thing today, then you're welcome. I think that is it from us today.